Rebel salute to everybody out there. This is Kenya Revolutionary. I hope you're doing good, wherever you are. It's morning, wherever I am. So I'm drinking coffee, wherever you are. If you're in Kenya, if you're in Australia, Europe, Asia, whatever. Karibu sana. New Zealand, Antarctica, karibu. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, and enemies, comrades. Today, I want to do a review on Herman Manyora, Professor Herman Manyora. I always question how did this guy actually become a professor, because some of his arguments are appalling to say the least. He was on Spice FM today or yesterday, or whatever the case is, and he was being interviewed by Eric Ndu and Moga and CT Moga, whatever his name is. And the exchange was really actually interesting. Coming from a professor, I would have expected more from him, but let's delve into it because there's a lot to break down. So I will play this video. And by the way, just a quick disclaimer. This video that I'm about to play is originally from Spice FM, and I am using it for education purpose only. Okay, education purpose. We are reviewing this, and it's for education purpose only. So let's delve into it without wasting any of your time. Okay, let's go. Okay, so here we go. I shall share the video right now, so we can get started and see what Herman is saying. All right, let's go.
We haven't had him here this year, but now here he is. Happy New Year, Herman.
Happy New Year.
How you doing?
Taking a break from media.
Why?
Just taking a break.
Why?
Arrest what is it? Arrest is what? Is as good as something is what? No.
Something like that is as good as a break.
yeah, whatever.
That thing.
Yeah.
Good. So how is it feeling?
Oh, feeling great.
Are you feeling broken or rested?
Well, great. Just great.
Okay.
Feeling good.
Karibu sana.
Yeah, thank you.
City will welcome you with the day's proverb. This week, the man is in Namibia.
We are honoring the passing away of their president, a great friend of this country. Yes, and the relationship between Kenya and Namibia has been fast and has been strong for very, very many years. Yes, the continent has lost a great leader. A stranger has big eyes, but sees nothing.
A stranger has big eyes, but
I'll forward this a little bit because this is just beginning is usually the questioning and all that stuff. I'll just forward it a little bit so we can save us time, so we can get to the nitty-gritty of what we want to actually discuss. So here it is.
Of a great understanding.
Correct.
Of where it is they're coming from, circumstances, and who they are. Then the assistance makes a lot of sense.
Context opens those big eyes.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So, Manyora,
Yes.
a lot's happening in this country, politically and all, eh?
A lot.
A
I
lot,
don't
a
even
lot.
want to hear from you.
A lot. There's a lot of there's taking on Raila.
I don't read papers. I don't watch news.
You just took a complete
I'm
break
complete
from.
break. But I can recharge.
Yeah?
I can recharge. I can reboot the system.
This is you now rebooting.
Yes, now
starting
I'm
from
rebooting
here.
this studio today.
Okay. Now, somebody has gone to court and said that there are many Kenyans in various parts of the country who do not have a representative for their ward, do not have a representative, and they participated in the 2022 election. But for one reason or another, that seat has fallen vacant. And the seat has not been refilled to date, despite there being a clear path towards refilling those seats, constitutionally and in law, the Elections Act and others. And the judge looked at that and said, yeah, true. There's a violation of the rights of these people. Now, I understand that there is some political conversation that's been taking place in the name of national dialogue, but that national dialogue, as far as I sit here and I look at the law, is not anchored in any law. So I direct that the IEBC, that an IEBC selection panel immediately commences the work of filling the position of IEBC commissioners so that they can be appointed, so that then they can hold an election, by-elections in these areas. It is so ordered. Politicians are up in arms. They're like,
It is so ordered.
this judiciary does not understand that we're actually in the middle of a conversation on how to have that selection panel.
It's tricky.
What's the trick?
Because the judge is looking at the law. And perhaps in a
Quick context there. Eric actually reads Herman Manyora, just quick, and I discussed this the other day or the day before that. Eric is referring to the judgment that was made last week that actually declared NADCO to be unconstitutional and not anchored in law, and proceeded and told the president to go ahead the process of selecting the select panel, which should constitute, pick up the next IEBC commissioners. So that is what he is actually referring to, and asking Herman Manyora, telling him, hey, this is what the judge actually ruled upon, and why these politicians are up in arms talking about this judiciary is this and that and the third. So let's hear what Mr. Herman Manyora has to say about that.
Solution and makes a ruling or gives an order. Yeah. And it's up to politicians to see what to do. Unless you are saying the judge should have been more sensitive to the situation on the ground. But I want to say this before you go there.
Yeah.
Strike one. Okay, he's been asked, what's your feeling on that? The judiciary made their pronouncement on the matter, said that the IEBC should be constituted. They should pick up the next IEBC folks, commissioners, so that, and he also gave the context. Eric gave the context that there's 5 constituency that has no representative. So the judge was saying, hey, we need this IEBC in order for these guys get representation, because this is unfair. These people have been there for a year without anybody representing them. So he's been asked, why are the politicians creating this whole brouhaha about this? And he's like, it is up to the politicians to. It is really up to the politician, really, Herman? Let's go ahead and listen to him.
I think, one of the defining characteristics of a poor person is wastage. And it applies to poor countries. We waste money all the time. Why do we have to do by-elections? Why? And you spend millions and millions of shillings. Last time I checked, a single by-election in a constituent, I think, was costing about 40 million many years ago. That wasn't even 10 years ago.
40 million.
40 million under the old constitution. More than 10 years ago.
One by-election.
40 million shillings. You can imagine what it is today. And all the busybodies running around. And everything coming to a standstill. If you really put the figures down, my friend, you'll be talking about 200 million shillings on a single by-election. Perhaps a quarter of that, 50 million to elect an MCA. What for? Why can't we have arrangements when, if something happens and a seat falls vacant, there's somebody to fill it?
And who's
this wastage? This wastage.
I think the question then would be, Herman, who is that somebody then? And then because looking at an election in the first place, it is assumed that it is the choice of the people by going to the ballot that selected this individual. Now, for whatever reason, this individual should, fall away. The people not then reserve the right to make another selection of who will be the replacement.
At a higher level in America, for example, and even in Kenya, you elect a president, but if the president disappears from the picture, you don't have gotten an election.
Because there's a vice president.
Yeah. So, but in this case, there's no vice MCA.
No,
it's a question of thinking out something. We could say maybe the second person. If Manyora gets, MCA Manyora gets 1,800 votes, I beat Muga with a miserable 50 votes. Why can't he become the next
Then
MCA?
give Muga should something happen.
We should take care. It's a question of the principle.
So the number 2 should be
out.
So like we have a sitting MCA and a standing MCA.
Whichever. We can work out something to avoid wastage of money and the time. But back to your question, I think...
Herman Manyora. Okay, so this is not a presidential seat where if the president is to fall sick or is dies, the vice president takes over. This is an MCA seat. That's number one, Herman Manyora. Number two, you can't just give an example and say the re-election exercise is too expensive, so we shouldn't have an election. I'm sorry, but the law requires that if an MCA or an MPA dies or vacates the seat for whatever reason, whether it's through sickness or where he cannot no longer be represent the people, there should be a re-election. That's what the law says, okay? So the money part is irrelevant, okay? The wastage actually happens because of corruption, not because there's not enough funds to actually undertake this process of re-election, okay? Number three, this whole argument, Herman Manyora is saying, okay, we should think outside the box. We should have a number two in case, if the MCA, let's say, won by 100 votes, the person who comes out second should actually be the one to take over the MCA spot since, he was number second by the virtue of coming second in the last elections. The problem is this. People may have not, people vote for a person for a reason. They vote for a specific candidate because of maybe what he stands for, or for maybe they like him because of, his history regarding the contribution he has made to the community. So if a certain MC, dies or whatever, the seat becomes vacant for whatever reason, you can't just go by the last election and say, okay, the number two now should take over. No. That's not how it works. We should go back to a re-election so we can see the candidates that are actually be running again, so we can choose based on sera ambao wanatuuzia. Let the people make their choices. There's a reason why that person came number two, is because they felt he had the best ideas or whatever the case is, okay? So you can't just say number two can come. Now, there's some systems where they can do that, but this is not the one, especially for the MC, MCA, MP seat. Let's go back to Herman Manyora.
I don't blame the judge. He was doing his job.
She was doing her job.
She was a girl. She was a lady. She was a lady. I didn't know that. I tell you, I don't watch news. So this person was doing their job. Let's not blame them. Let's then use the ruling and move forward. Let us be proactive instead of making noise, instead of blaming the judge. Let's just move forward and say, what can we do? We don't have time left in terms of, for example, review of boundaries. You can't do it now. What can we do? The reality of NADCO is there with us. The political reality, like I think Muga says, or you, is there. In between all these realities, how can we figure out the way forward? I think that to me is the most important thing.
Herman,
yes,
what you suggest happens to be a reality in one country that I know of. It's called Papua New Guinea.
Papua New Guinea.
When you elect,
yes,
you choose, you're given a choice. Who is your number one choice?
Yes.
Who's your number two choice?
Yeah.
Who's your number three choice?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
So if you want to be an MP, you go around the various wards of the various areas talking to people.
Yes.
When they then tally the number of number ones you've gotten.
Yes.
If you've gotten the most number ones, then clearly you are the one who is the lead.
Correct.
If there's some sort of a tie, okay, then they go to number two. Yes. They count your number twos and look at how many number twos did you garner.
Yes.
Okay. Now, meaning, if, say, for instance, my constituency is Embakasi, okay, and I want to be president, and I'm campaigning, and I know very well that it is Manyora's stronghold, I will not go and tell them, give me number one. I say, yeah, just give me number two. I know Manyora is your person, okay, but just give me the number two vote. Yes. Meaning, the option for somebody else to actually get elected or to be in a position of authority is already catered for within that system.
Yeah.
Okay. So as you say correctly, by the time they're going for a rerun, yes, usually you've tied on all these things and you can see the complexity of it.
Yeah.
So the election is then easily justifiable. But not on this one of ours where you could have won with the 20 votes.
Yes.
Now, those 20 votes can be contestable. But then when it comes to matters of the judiciary, this is where now I find a hypocritical nature rearing its head. Judiciary as an entity are the same people who in 2017 said, we're going back to this election, this one didn't make sense. Same judiciary. Same judiciary also said, look, folks, let's be reasonable. These CSs, the law doesn't allow you to have them. Go back and fix it. They were even given a period within which they could fix it.
Yes.
Did they fix it?
No.
They were even given an opportunity and say, okay, we allow you to have CSs, but you have this number. What did we go and do? We doubled the number. So all I'm saying is, it's like those who are in political rulership in this country look for ways of going against the very thing that the judiciary or the law states. So when the judiciary stamps their foot and says, look, this is what the law says, our politicians seem to want to give the impression that they're above the law, that whatever the judges say, if they don't agree with it, it can't possibly be right. Now, surely, that is my understanding of it. Is this attitude really correct?
It wouldn't be correct, but again, there's the danger of what people are calling a constitutional crisis. But these are small matters. The problem with this country, people don't want to think. We are lazy when it comes to thinking.
Just a quick explanation here. What is a constitutional crisis? Constitutional crisis is when we are facing a problem, a challenge, let's say a situation where the Constitution does not provide a solution to the problem that we are facing. Okay, we cannot look at the Constitution to find a solution to the challenge that we find ourselves in. The situation in Kenya is not it's not a constitutional crisis. Okay, the Constitution is very clear that the president should appoint once the IEBC commissioner wakimaliza their term, once they finish their term, the president should appoint a panel. What is it called? I forget the name. Whatever panel, selection panel. Okay, and this selection panel actually goes ahead and select the next commissioners. The President Ruto already did select this selection panel, and it was supposed to go on, but Raila Odinga and his friends went to the streets and demanded that they have a talk and have a say on this selection of the next commissioner. So that's why they suspended the whole process, and they had that NADCO thing, which the judge again ruled that it was unconstitutional and then it's not anchored in law. So they should go ahead and. But let's go ahead.
This is a small matter that can be sorted out one afternoon in a room. Siti Muga, Latif, and we sit down and with these politicians and we tell them way forward. It's nothing difficult.
So why aren't they doing it?
I don't know.
It can't be laziness.
It's mental laziness.
No, it is.
Laziness.
It is.
I'm telling you.
Apathy is laziness. I mean,
even this IBC thing, it's just laziness. Why are they talking about IBC? Why is Raila, for example, talking about IBC and Ruto and everybody? It's just laziness. IBC is a small cog in the whole mess. You need to fix the electoral system. Then IBC is a small thing that comes at the tail end of the fixing of the electoral problem.
What's wrong with the electoral system? What's
it
wrong?
Doesn't produce the results people would expect and desire.
So here is where Eric starts pinning him and Anza and this is where he starts exposing Herman Manyora, because Herman Manyora is saying the problem is the electoral system, and Eric rightfully asked him, what is the problem with the electoral system? And he said, Herman Manyora's answer is, it does not produce the answer that most people want. The electoral system, IBC, which is given this power, their job is not to give you, to conduct a process to give a result what people want. It is supposed to conduct a fair, a transparent electoral process, okay? And whoever wins, wins. It's not about the people's will be reflected in the process okay? But it is their job is not, the electoral structure that we have in Kenya is not designed to give Herman Manyora the results that he wants. But you just had him. Herman Manyora is, let's go on. Let's continue.
That's all.
What do you mean?
That's why we're always fighting after every 5 years and wasting time and money and resources and life and property.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
It is. I think it's only in 2002, in recent years, that an election was not found to be unfair.
What election are you talking about? A presidential election?
There's only one election in this country. How many elections?
There's 6 elections.
There's only one election. These others are flower girls escorting the president. This country has only one election. And if you fix it, everything's okay. We've never had a proper election. And the only time we didn't have problems was 2002. And then it is because of the overwhelming nature of the victory of NAC and the mood in the country, euphoria and everything you want to call it. But all these others, from the time we restarted it in 1992, have had issues with them. And these are the presidential points. So
what is wrong there?
It's the whole electoral system.
What?
The entire electoral system is an infrastructure. To deliver a president, you need an electoral infrastructure.
Okay.
IBC is a small aspect of that at the operational level. So it does not matter to me who becomes a commissioner. So I'm very amused, sometimes even annoyed, that seasoned politicians like Ella would be putting premium on who is a commissioner.
Herman, I'm sorry, but you're using buzzwords.
Why?
The whole electoral system has a problem.
Yes.
What is the problem?
Good question.
Is the problem in identification of voters, in who saying who votes? Is a problem in voting? Is a problem in counting? Is a problem in declaration of where is the problem?
Let me give you in a nutshell.
Yes.
The problem is that there is of elections in this country do not reflect the will of we have it on authority. What did the Supreme Court in 2017? We have it on pen. In black and white.
So why does it not reflect this?
So I'm saying we have why is this electoral system not delivering to us?
How would we be able to know what's the results? What would we see? How would we then say,
Back. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. But you had the question there. They were asking. He's saying the electoral process. He was asked, "What's the problem? Is it the voting? Is it the declaration? What is it? What's the problem?" And he says it does not give the results that people want. And then, so what will indicate that, what can they do or what can they indicate? And he says the people should be, the loser should concede. What will be the indication that the process is working? And he said the loser conceding. So the system, the failure of the system working is dependent on the attitude of the loser. So if if we are having an election and the electoral process is finished, if the loser comes out and said, "I'm not conceding this election," that means that the electoral process is flawed because the loser's attitude is not to accept the defeat. That's basically what Herman Manyora is trying to say. I'm just baffled by this man. But let's continue. Herman Manyora. The problem with that reasoning is this, Herman Manyora. Listen, if you're watching this, and I'm going to tag you, please, if you're on X, tag Herman Manyora on this video, on this live. I wish he could come in so we can debate. He says that you can actually take the pulse and notice the mood of the country just by standing on top of the KICC and watching the country in bird's eye view. Basically, what you're saying is this, Herman Manyora: perception. One can perceive, if you're sitting on top of KICC and you're looking at the country and you detect the mood, and maybe from the KICC, you're sitting on top of KICC, maybe from that point of view, from that perception, you might feel like the country is not happy with the IEBC's process. But like I said, the problem with what you've just said there, Herman Manyora, is that that is perception. And perception is subjective, okay? Depending where you sit. So just because you, Herman Manyora, thinks that the process was flawed does not mean that's the reality. Maybe if I was sitting on the level, on the ground, on KICC, I would have seen things differently. But let's continue. All right, Herman Manyora, let's continue. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. Sorry, people. Sorry, people. I'm all over. My I forgot to do something here. Let me just go ahead and do that. I'll replay that.
Conceding defeat.
Okay.
So it depends on the attitude of the loser.
The loser is not an individual.
Okay.
It is a country.
Yeah, so that's
If you stand on top of KICC, whatever you call it, you'll be able to see the country and you can read the mood of the country. You can take the pulse of the country. Every time an election is announced of the president, and you can tell there's something wrong. Even before it gets to Supreme Court, you can know. And in fact, Latif, have you ever bothered to find out why the framers of the Constitution said we could sort out an electoral dispute in 14 days? Have you ever thought about it? So when I see some people who say they are learned, saying we need to extend 14 days, I think they don't understand. They miss the point. The point is you can have a bird's view of what has taken place during an election. It can't be a contestation in a court in the normal manner when you can determine a parliamentary contest in a court, a dispute, in 2 months. How can you determine a presidential one in 14 days? It means it is expected that if you live in this country, Latif, you can have a bird's view of the situation. You can know this election was not conducted well. That's what 14 days mean.
That's what Ndu is asking you. How can you tell? For example,
Yes.
apart from the one that you've quoted, the 2002, and you have said
Yes.
the reason why many people were okay with the result outcome in 2002
Yes.
was because of the overwhelming nature
Yes.
of the support for one candidate.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
One of those candidates. Since 1992,
Yes.
has there been any election apart from the 2002 one where you can say that there has been an overwhelming support of a single candidate, where then you would know that, this is the candidate with the most overwhelming support, but this is not the candidate who's been declared?
It is not overwhelming in the sense of knack, but you can get a sense, you can get a feeling of where the country is headed, the direction the country is taking.
Would you say that, all right, let's even go into 2013,
Yes.
2017, 2022, that there is an election where the candidates who've gone into that election, any of them, you could look, press the pulse of the country and all, and say that this candidate has 52% of the electorate?
You can have a feeling of who won the election.
I'm asking.
Even then, you can have a feeling of who won the
Can I
election.
ask-
But
Is there-
that is now. Let me.
Is there
explain.
any
You
of
can-
those
yes,
three
yes,
elections
you can have a
where-
feeling, but you see, that's a very subjective one because of the 52%. You know, there's something we are talking about is 60 plus. 52% is something subjective, and this is how now the Supreme Court comes in. When you go through the Supreme Court, it removes all doubt now. Even before they tell us their verdict, having listened to the presentations in court, it should confirm to you who won the election. So they can say something that is contrary to what people know to be the truth. But back to why IBC to me is a small bit, we need to look at, for example, let me just give you practical reasons why I think IBC should come last. We need to start by looking and asking ourselves, even at that lower level of just managing an election, we ask ourselves, do you need a full-time commission? How come countries with millions, hundreds and hundreds of millions of voters, where a Kenyan politician, the Kenyan population is not enough to provide election officials in India? The entire population of Kenya is less than the number of people required to run an election in India. Okay? How come they could have 3 commissioners? And how come they may not even be full-time? And why? What is the role of IBC commission vis-a-vis the secretariat? Those are issues to ask. Secondly, why would an election be managed from Nairobi? And the law itself states that voting takes place at a polling station and ends there. Why are we not?
The elections is not managed from Nairobi. The election is actually managed, the votes are counted at the polling stations, at the constituency level, okay? Nothing is managed in Nairobi. The only thing that Chebukati does is simply announce officially. He's been given that authority specifically. He's the one who announces whoever won from all these constituency. That's why people ask, there's some people who are asking, why did William Ruto and his mother go to Boma Center? Did they know that he had won beforehand? Yes, he knew beforehand, because when he was counting all the constituency, because they were posting that on the portal, all he had to do was gather around his mathematicians, akaanza ku calculate from all the constituencies, okay? All the constituency. And he did the math, and it was obvious that he had won. That's why he didn't have to wait for Mombasa and Kakamega and all these places that hadn't been counted. He already knew he had won, because the results from most of the constituency had been announced. That's the reason why. So I don't know, but let's go on with Herman Manyora.
Reading from that, why don't we find a way of decentralizing the management of elections to county and even ward level? Okay? So when you begin to interrogate yourself, then you now get perhaps a point of okay, fine, we have no structure, elections be decentralized, governors are part-time, there are fewer than 9. Okay, so what is the next point? We are voting. What else we're doing is it CI or whatever it is. Those are now the details you can get to. Yeah, later.
Are we saying an electoral system is a voting system?
I've clarified. I've said at the end now, when you get now to the voting, how do you manage the voting?
There's a reason why I asked the question, and I'm in agreement with your response. Is this, Eric asked the question, have we had any time outside 2002 where it was patently clear that a certain candidate won? And you spoke of a bird's eye view. I think the crafters of our constitution sought this straight when they said the election begins and ends at the polling station.
Correct.
All right? Now, why do you have a problem in 2007 and 2008? Something very strange happened. The individual who was supposed to had more. Put it this way, the elected leaders within the party of that individual were more. Significantly more. So the question that was then being asked was, is it actually possible for people to have gone to the ballot and elected all these elected officials and failed to vote for the flag bearer of this particular party? It was a question that has never fully been answered, but it raised questions. Now, in my mind, it is a significant question. And then there was the question of those who actually voted, and there were issues of votes. Now, the one question that is never addressed in this country is the one of the server. Never. It is talked about, it is asked.
Just
and yet,
answer,
that ought to be the most, because
CT's question about he asked that why is it that in 2007, 2008, and he was referring to Raila, the ODM party actually had the majority of MPs and all the other. So he posed the question: is it possible that people can actually go to the polling station and vote for anybody else of that party, MPs, MCAs? Well, we didn't have MCAs then, but I'm just saying MPs, whatever we had then, but not vote for the top candidate as far as the presidential candidate. He asked that question. Theoretically speaking, yes, that can be possible. But in this case, in 2007, it was clear as day that Raila won. And we can revisit that. I mean, we all know what happened. Raila won. It wasn't Chebukati. What's his name? Before Chebukati, there was somebody. It was Hassan. Before Hassan, there was some Kivuitu. Remember, he had to hide somewhere in a hole, someone's basement, and announce the elections at night, somewhere at night. And we know what happened after that. There was sporadic spree of neurosis, violence, which almost led the country into a civil war. Kofi Annan, Condoleezza Rice to come in and give us a government of national unity. We know the story, okay? So to answer City in that question, and I think he's just trying to be a journalist here. He knows the answer, but he's just posing the question for the sake of discussion. Basically, he's saying, is there a possibility that can happen? And like I said, theoretically, yes, but in this case, it was obvious as day and night. Kibaki lost to Raila. It was obvious. But Kivuitu alifanya ile kitu. Let's continue.
There, all the elections, all the votes, everything is nestled. So if someone says yes, here it is.
But City Muga, what's the point of the server? The server is neither here nor there. Where is the server in this the whole mass? I've been scratching my head to find out the role of the server.
The reason why
elections take place
at the polling station.
At the polling station,
not on a server.
Yeah, not on a server.
The reason why the server becomes a subject of debate is because it is where Nyungu, yes, yes, it is where everything else is necessary.
Why is it going there? That's for records only.
Yeah.
Yes, but records are a reference point, are they not?
No. City, the record.
We don't declare even a winner from the server.
No, the record is the warehouse that has the physical ballots.
Look, our electoral system electronic.
No, it's not.
Please.
When results are relayed to the tallying center, is it physically or electronic?
Physical.
Look,
just to clarify here, quick clarification. The relaying of the results from the constituency to the National Tallying Center is done both physically and electronically. The presiding officer, once the constituency voting has happened, washachagua the presidential, the MPs, the MCAs, and all that stuff, it is to be signed by both the Azimio and Kenya Kwanza and all the parties that are involved in that electoral process, candidature. I mean, their agents. And the presiding officer also anapiga sahihi. He takes a picture and puts it on the portal so everyone can see it if you log into the portal. Then he takes the physical paper that has been signed by all the agents and drives to Nairobi to take it to Chebukati and hands it over to Chebukati by hand. So whatever that presiding officer has handed over to the Chebukati should correspond with whatever was transmitted electronically in the portal. Okay, so that's what they're trying to say here. So he's asking, and then they ask the records. Okay, what's the whole deal with the server? Like I say, they answered him nicely by saying the server is a storage of what happened. Okay, it stores, it records. It's a store, electronic store for whatever. If you want to find out who won, we can just go to the server and look at whatever. But the most reliable one that we actually, if there was to go to court, you don't even need a server, okay? You don't need a server. And that's why people are always arguing about server. The reason why we don't need a server because the paper ballot, the one that was and the receipt that was the one that was signed by the presiding officer and the both agents of Azimio and the Kenya Kwanza, that one is kept by the IEBC. I think by law it should be kept for 3 years. Okay, so if Azimio, like they were claiming, oh, fungua server, they don't need to go to open the server. They can go to IEBC and request. I think it's Article 35 of the Constitution, where anybody can actually basically request information from the government. I know now they can't do that because we don't have a commissioner to actually authorize that process. But I'm saying, instead of them running around in their campaign, magari wakisema open the server, all they have to do is ask the IBC to give them all the copies of those Form 34A, 34B, 34C, which actually shows the results of every constituency, every polling station that the elections took place. And they can tally that all up and see if it actually corresponds to what Chebukati announced on that day in August 9th, 2022. That's why the server is irrelevant. But it's used by politicians to actually play into the ignorance of their followers, for them to keep on being annoyed and throwing stones and whatever the case is. But let's continue.
I want you to help politicians in this country. Please. Tell the politicians elections take place at the polling station.
Period.
Them. He put them there, but they turned against him, including his own people. So let's not depend on there. Let us decentralize our electoral system. Let us have with a say at the county level, at the the polling. Now you have. And why is it not working? It's not working because
by the
it is
returning
not
officer.
working. Latif, listen.
Yeah.
It is not working because we've created this myth about.
Is it a myth, really?
Yes.
What you're saying?
Let me give you a good example.
just
In
tell me.
America, let me give you a good example.
Okay.
In America, people vote. And after they vote, somebody concedes. And somebody even gives an acceptance speech. Have they gotten the bombers yet? Do you know when they'll get bombers? My friend. And find out. When do they get bombers? City Muga. I'm talking to you. You must that moving speech of Obama. Had he been declared the president by the system? Had they gone to bombers?
No.
You see,
Latif, had they gone to bombers?
Not yet.
no,
Not yet.
they do not have
A whole
So he's coming out of that hibernation.
That's a terrible example. You can't compare the American system with the Kenyan system. They don't have the so-called bombers. Okay, first of all, geographically, America is huge and different from Kenya. So they don't need a bombers. They don't go to Washington D.C. and declare who won the elections, because their elections is carried out by the states. It's not a federal system. Okay, while they govern themselves through the federal system. Okay, the process of elections is handled by the states. Okay, so every state conducts its own elections. Okay, so they declare. Texas will say they'll conduct their own elections and they have their own election, whatever, and they'll say, hey, in Texas, this is what Biden got, whatever, X amount of elections. Trump got X amount of elections, okay? Then they count depending on how many delegates, whatever votes, collegial votes that come with the constituency, or possible that the state carries, okay? That's why you find some places like California and New York. They're small geographically, but they carry a lot of collegial votes, okay? But what I'm trying to emphasize on Herman's point is that the United States, they don't have the bombers kind of arrangement, because it's a huge country, number one. And number two, the individual states carry out their electoral process independently. Okay, so you might find that, for example, Texas will use ballot papers for their electoral process. California might use electoral system for their voting process. And another state will use another way of using that. So it all varies. It's not the same. Okay, Kenya, we have kind of we use the physical way of ballot papers. Then we tally them physically. Then we enter in the information electronically for the sake of transparency. Okay, so our system is easier to verify. It's an easy process that shouldn't have any complications. So I just want to kind of clear up the disparity or the difference we have between how elections are run in the US and how they are run in
focusing too much on the IEBC and not on the system. And you're also talking about there's the need to decentralize this whole thing.
correct.
But I put it to you, Herman, it's actually decentralized. Like you said, election happens at the polling station. And for you to the returning that I now go to court. The return. So this is the boss at the politics.
Yes.
So the returning officer, the constituency returning officer is the boss of the election.
Yes.
The constituency returning officer says this is the MP. The constituency returning officer says this is the president.
Sorry, guys. I'm having technical difficulties, but we surge on. I will move it back so we can kind of get what Latif was actually correcting. Was correcting Herman Manyora, because Herman Manyora was basically saying that we need to decentralize the whole electoral system, the IBC, where we don't have to worry about going to bombers. And Latif actually explains to him that actually it is decentralized. We don't, that's why we have presiding officers. Every constituency takes care of its elections, and they declare it, then bring it to bombers. So it is kind of decentralized. And that's what basically what Latif was saying. So let's get to that. I'm having kind of technical difficulties, but we'll get it. We'll get to it.
Had he been declared the president by the system, had they gone to bombers?
No. You see,
are they going to bombers?
No.
Not yet.
They do not.
I guess he's been off for a while. He's coming out of hibernation now, focusing on IBC and not on the system. And you're also talking about there's the need to decentralize. Is this whole thing
correct?
But I put it to you, Herman, it's actually like a polling station. And challenge is where you're caught to challenge what the returning. So the returning officer is the boss of that at the polling station. The constituency is actually where, even for president.
But is that our practice?
That's what happens.
What are you saying exactly?
In this country.
Yes.
So the returning officer, the constituency returning officer is the boss of the election in that. When the constituency returning officer says, in these wards, these are the MCAs who've been elected, I now declare, and they issue certificates.
Yes.
The constituency officer says, this is the MP.
Yes.
The county returning officer says, this is the governor, the woman rep. Hence, the constituency returning officer says, this is the presidential election result. They're only relaying to us because we were not in that constituency. They're relaying to the country. This is what the constituency returning officer in Endebess said as the result of the presidential election. Yes.
Yeah.
They don't come and say, but we have now counted. No. Yes. So Bomas
where is the problem?
Bomas is just.
So where is the problem?
A podium.
Why was somebody declaring Bomas a scene of crime?
Because the claim here, and
all the fuss is about Bomas, you know that.
And that is what City was saying, that in that transmission of what has been declared by the constituency returning officer as the result of the presidential election, when it happens online and happens physically, that's where issues come up. But I ask, are they really issues that are coming up, or is it the political protagonists creating issues?
You see, we have created bombers as a superhuman being to tell us what has taken place. And I've talked to you about America. And I've told you, by the time they get to bombers, somebody's already president. The only thing that has not happened, they have not been sworn in. But they are already president. They have been president. Everything about them, they are president. You get what I'm saying? Let us get our president without bombers. Let bombers just be the formality that Congress engages in declaring or confirming who won the presidency. I don't think, I'm not so sure that one day their bombers has overturned what people knew to be true. Even just, and Manyora concedes to him. That's what I'm trying to say we do. And let us get to have our president long before we get to bombers, so that bombers becomes a mere formality. Congress confirming.
And for me, I say the problem is not the system.
Yeah, it is the system.
No, the problem is the candidates, the politicians.
No, why?
Because that, just like we've said, if there's no contestation of any of the 290 returning officers, if the 290 returning officers, just like would be in America and elsewhere, if the 290 have said this is the person who's won the presidential election in this constituency, right?
Why do we even wait for them to say? They don't. We don't. By the time the
Herman Manyora is. Anyway, Eric is making a good point that I agree with. He's saying this. If all the presiding officers, the returning officer, whatever you want to call it, the ones that are in the constituency, the ones that are actually overseeing over this process, election, the counting and all that stuff. Remember, in every constituency, you should have agents of each and every political party, coalition or political party. So, and after the tallying of these votes, they have to sign in agreement saying that they've all signed and they've agreed on the number of who won and whatever. Then the presiding officer also puts his signature, puts it online, and also takes the physical copy down to bombers. Okay? So what Eric is trying to tell Herman Manyora, and Herman Manyora just doesn't get it. He actually does not understand how the process works. He's there mumbling, wumbling, and waffling. He doesn't know what is happening, but he's arguing for the sake of arguing because he has the name professor before his name. And I even doubt how I don't know how he became a professor, but anyway, that's an issue of another day. What I'm trying to say is this. Eric was actually trying to tell him, hey, listen, our system is just as decentralized as you may want it, as you are trying to describe it. The bombers people are only declaring. Chebukati's position is only to declare, okay? Declare. That's the constitutional authority that has been given to the chairman of the IBC. He sits at bombers and declares. But the counting and all that stuff happens at the mashinani, at the constituency level, okay? That's what Eric is saying. And that's why he's saying that the problem is not the electoral system. It is not the infrastructure, it's not the structure of the electoral IBC. That is not the problem. The problem is the politician, because he gave an example. Most of the petitions that usually come in, they don't come from the MCAs, MPs, and all that, governors and all that stuff, because the process is usually smooth. You don't hear a lot of complaints on the contestations between, MCAs and MPs and the governors and stuff. It is always the presidency. And that's why he gave an example. He said, tukivote for MC hakuna shida. There's nobody contested that. MPs wakishindwa wameshindwa na kubali, whatever the case they kubali. But when it comes to the presidency, and remember, the whole process is done the same way. It is not done differently. It's done the same way. But the problem is the politicians, these political protagonists, because if they lose, they start saying, oh, the system is wrong, or Chebukati is the chairman of the Chebukati wamefanya vitu hapo Bomas Center. That's why you hear Herman Manyora was saying Bomas is a crime or whatever, crime scene. No, it's not. They were simply receiving the relayed results that was actually put in the portal, and they're confirming it with what their presiding officer brought to them, the returning officer brought to them, and they simply declared who won. There was nothing else more to it. I know some of you might argue and come in and say, what about the Cherera 4? I will come to the Cherera 4 because all this is related. But let's finish up with Herman Manyora. Is here what Herman Manyora says. Okay? Herman Manyora, take it over.
Constituency person does that from 34B or whatever it is called.
Yes.
B or C.
Yes.
We already have our president. The
Yes.
loser has
Sorry, guys. Like, I'm having like technical difficulties, and it's kicking me out. I don't know if Herman Manyora's people are kind of attacking me today, but we shall continue and we shall finish this. I'm almost done, ladies and gentlemen. Because here is what I want to play, so we can get a clear understanding. I'm finishing up. We are not going to leave this no stone unturned. Let's go and finish this. Herman Manyora, take it over.
That has been overturned. I'm not so sure that one day their bombers has overturned what people knew to be true. Even just exit polls already indicate Muga has won the presidency. To that bombers becomes a mere formality. Congress confirming.
And for me, I say the problem is not the system.
Yeah, it is a system.
No, the problem is the candidates, the politicians.
No, why?
Because just like we've said, if there's no contestation of any of the 290 returning officers, if the 290 returning officers, just like would be in America and elsewhere, if the 290 have said this is the person who's won the presidential election in this constituency, right?
Why do we even wait for them to say? They don't. We don't. By the time the constituency person does that from 34B or whatever it is called, B or C.
Yes.
We already have our president. The loser has already conceded. That's what I'm trying to allude to. And in order to aid that, let us decentralize.
What is this? Why is the loser conceding before the returning officer declares that?
Why should he wait? Do they wait in America for the returning officer?
Which returning officer?
No,
yes, they do.
They don't.
At the local level, they do.
No, what are you talking about?
You know,
Wait, which American elections do you watch?
but
Which
you
one do you watch yourself?
Those
Oh,
local,
like, YouTube.
the local election, the local election, a winner is the result is
you
announced.
have a bias when discussing the American electoral system, and you forget
Yes.
it's a little more complex than we're making it.
Big one.
The big?
Yes, it's a little more complex
Yes.
because you have something called an electoral college.
Yes.
In my mind, I don't probably understand it well. It's a pre-rigged system because you are not president by a popular vote in America. Not really.
Correct.
I get the city's argument here, but the whole electoral votes is irrelevant to this topic. We are talking about how the system works and how it is structured. And basically, Eric is saying that, the electoral system is not flawed. The structure has no problem. The problem is the politicians, when they lose an election, they try to blame the system and the personalities that actually presiding over, the system, the IBC chairman and everything else. They refuse to accept that they actually lost the vote. Lost the contest. So that's what Eric is saying. But Herman Manyora is trying to tell us that no, it is the system. So let's go ahead.
Atumepigiwa kura. We've had people who've won the popular vote.
Clinton did by 3 million.
Oh, yes. People in as many electoral
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies of Christ, I'm getting a lot of glitches, so I'll stop this live right now. It's been 1 hour and 7 minutes. So, anyway, the whole point I was trying to say is that, just to wrap it up, what I'm trying to say is this. Herman Manyora is actually clueless. This guy, I don't know how he became a professor. I'm not being facetious here. I'm not trying to be funny. This guy, his reasoning is appalling. There's nothing compelling about his argument. He actually does not even understand how the system works. Because when they ask him, hey, what's wrong with the system? Or it's like the system is not producing what the people's will is. Then they ask him, can you tell the people's will? And it's like, when you stand on top of KICC, you can actually tell the mood of the people. So you have to actually stand on top of the KICC or Boma Center and to tell the people's mood. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The guy is clueless. I'm sorry to say this, Herman Manyora, and I hope you see this. And so, Eric asking him some valid questions and told him, hey, listen, what's the problem there? Or, we have to get rid of this bombers, the whole thing of declaring things in the Bomber Center, bombers, whatever. And Eric explained to him that the Bomber Center is just a place where they declare what has happened at the constituency level. Okay? The electoral process is decentralized, okay? The presiding officers, these counties, this voting, the counting takes place at the what? At the polling stations. And that's where the presidential election is declared. It has been decentralized. So Herman Manyora has I cannot say that it's not, but Herman Manyora does not understand this. He does not understand how it works. That's why he's arguing the way he's arguing. And Eric did a very good job in actually explaining to him and telling him, hey, listen, the system is not the problem. The problem is the loser of the elections. They always blame the system. The system is not the problem. It's the loser of the elections, and they mislead their followers, just like I explained in that case where, you know, they kept on saying, open the server, open the server, open the server. I explained this. The server will not be open. Why can they not open the server? Number one, because these servers are being run by whatever, Smartmatic, and they can only give you limited access, just like they did during the when the case was taken to the courts, because of their intellectual property rights. Okay, so they cannot open the servers, but you don't need the servers to actually ascertain the truth to what happened, who really won. There's still 41 Form 31A, Form 31B, 41C, E, F, G, H. All you have to do is write to the IBC and request that information. You can invoke Article 35, where you can actually ask this government to give you that. In order to do that, you need to actually have IBC commissioners to grant you permission to get that, because those files, those paper ballots, those records are to be kept for at least 3 years. So all the ODM and Azimio folks, all they have to do is just to go to the IBC, request for a copy of those, whatever, or even they can go and get the originals, you know, count it there, compare that to what was actually declared by Chebukati, then the issue is settled. You don't need the server, but they're using this server thing because they know it's a dead horse, but it is designed that way so they can say, see, Ruto amekataa kufungua server. Ruto does not have the authority to open the server, by the way. He does not. He does not run the IBC. The servers will actually belong to another company, private company altogether. It's not going to happen. Okay? So in summation, as I finish, I'm trying to say this. Herman Manyora, again, is intellectually deficient. This guy, I don't know how he became a professor. It was embarrassing at times. Basically, Eric was educating him on how things work. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies and comrades, I'll go live again in 2 hours. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe. Like this video, share it, comment, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace and blessings.